Happy birthday, Jedd Fisch. Here's 2 commits from your former team.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into a bonus Sunday edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. Thank you for making this whatever watch or listen to the day it is for you, because let's be real, it's Sunday evening. We appreciate you tuning in and being here with us. Lars, we are coming at the Everydayers with a special edition Jedd Fisch birthday Cinco de Mayo episode, because Washington earned 2 Arizona commits from wide receiver Kevin Green Jr. and running back Jordan Washington. Let's start with Jordan Washington, because we've been talking about him on the show a little bit more than Kevin Green, because I just love his film so much. He is so fast, man. He just has elite breakaway speed.
Yeah, this is one that, I mean, you can have Adam Muhammad, and that's a great piece, but this is a difference maker. And you mentioned it off the show. This is, or I'm not sure if you did mention on the show, but this is one of basically Jedd Fisch's top 3 commits that he had at Arizona, the other being Damon Williams and the other being the name
Rashawn Clark. Rashawn Clark was the third 4-star commit.
Right. And so having all 3 of those guys follow Jedd back to or up to Washington, depending on how you look at it, speaks volumes to why they committed to him in the first place. Because to be fair, with Jordan Washington spending time with spring camp at Arizona under Brent Brennan, that's something where he could have said, you know what, I'm going to stay loyal to the soil sort of thing and plant my roots here in Arizona. But Scotty Graham saw something special in him just beyond his electric ability, because when he talked about him after he signed this past December, he's got toughness, he's got elusiveness. And there's something that was something that Scotty Graham emphasized, where it's not just, yeah, he's a great track star, because we've seen sometimes track stars don't exactly translate over to on Saturdays, but he's got that vision. He's got a lot of game-breaking speed, and so this is a great pickup for Washington.
I could agree with you more. So you talked about some of the on-field stuff. That's what I really wanted to dive into here, because I love his film so much. I was watching it again this morning, when we started to hear that, oh, maybe this is who the coaches were tweeting about at 10 o'clock last night, which is always wonderful when things are hinted at. Shout out to the coaching staff, though. They're doing a fantastic job. And one of the first things that pops out where, yeah, he's insanely fast, but it's how quickly he gets up to that top speed, where he ran a 10-2 400-meter dash at Long Beach Poly, at Jordan. And it takes him 2 steps to do it, where it's 1, 2. Oh yeah, he's already flying. He's already off. And to speak on the elusiveness, that's something else that's so exciting. That's so cool. It's so fun to see, because, you think of some guys like that where it's, oh yeah, they just beat everybody because they're so fast. No, he's patient. He waits for some plays to develop, and he doesn't need that much of a hole to get through to be able to get up to top speed, where he's got really nice vision, and he's able to, like I said, let the play develop. Just wait and wait and wait. And then all of a sudden he takes off, where he sees the hole, or he's able to get outside the tackles, and he's able to do a whole bunch of different things that just running backs just definitely require. And while, he's definitely going to need some time to develop and add weight, where he's listed at 5'11", 170, he certainly needs a little bit of time 180. Kevin Green is listed 5'11", 170, but he's going to need a little bit of time to get up to weight. And as long as he can get up to, I just want to say 190, or I don't know if he's a guy that needs to play above 200 pounds, but if he can get up to that weight and take the hits and the physicality of the college game, this is somebody who down the line, and even potentially as a returner in 2024, could be electric for the Huskies. And Lars, we're going to keep getting into this. We're going to take a quick break. And we're going to give a shout out to our good friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the board with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like Digging for Treasure or Robot Pachinko Machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win, or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it. Now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Yeah, Lars, the more I watch Jordan Washington's film, the more excited I am about seeing him in this offense. And but I want to touch on another point that you mentioned, and it's something I also talked a little bit over on Huskies Wire in his commitment story, is that Jedd Fisch has now gotten the 3 best players from his 2024 recruiting class. And it kind of builds to exactly what his point has been all along of how he wants to develop this team and build this team, which is mainly through high school recruiting. And while they're technically acquisitions from the transfer portal, Damon Williams, Rashawn Clark, and Jordan Washington are all still true freshmen with 4 years of eligibility. So these are guys that he and his coaching staff can develop for a while and just build them up exactly the way that they want. They don't need to reteach anything because all he had was a spring at Arizona. So this is really just an exciting acquisition all around.
Yeah, the more you talk about him, it reminds me if you combine the vision of Myles Gaskin and the speed of John Ross, and then put him at running back with probably a little bit more size, not necessarily Myles Gaskin's size, but not necessarily John Ross's size. Ideally, you want him somewhere in between because you don't want him gaining too much or you're having too much muscle because he's going to naturally slow down no matter what. Considers he's not just a running back that you mentioned, right? He can do a number of things. The kick return game, he had over 500 yards as a kick returner, over 1,000 yards as a receiver, to go with 3,000 yards as a rusher. That tells me you could see Adam Ahmed and George Washington, and even just imagine this offense, those 2 plus Audric Harris, and then sprinkle in whoever you want. Raiden Vines right down the road.
Justice Williams being somebody on the outside. Yeah.
And that offense just screams versatility and electricity. And that's exactly what you want to see from an offense, especially what the college game has become in 2024. Damon Williams, whether he has to roll out or not, we saw at this rate, he can work with some great talent. And the fact that they're getting that talent early so they can kind of grow together is what's really going to be essential for 25 and 26, so they won't have to just bring in guys from the transfer portal every year and try and make everything patchwork. They're growing together so that and we saw the exact same recipe play out at Arizona with Noah Fafita, Tetairoa McMillan, and Joe Coleman in that 21 class when they won one game the previous season, and then 2 years later they're in the Alamo Bowl. So now with the talent that Fisch already is inheriting in Washington, you would imagine that curve won't be as steep. I don't think anybody expects Washington to win just one game next year. But then it really more is for that 25 year, right? Because Damon probably won't start the season, but getting all this talent on the board early allows them to grow together. That's ample for Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as speaking of Tetairoa McMillan, let's talk about the guy who was sitting behind him in Kevin Green. Right after a message from our good friends over at LinkedIn, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has a tool to help find all the right professionals for your team faster and for free, because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role in a given month. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. And that's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, Lars, I want to combine 2 guys that we were just talking about, because 3 actually. With you were talking about Audric Harris and we were talking about Justice Williams, who were 2 exciting freshmen that we definitely like. They certainly have high ceilings when it comes to 2024, when it comes to moving forward. And then Tetairoa McMillan, because Kevin Green was sitting behind him. I like Kevin Green. I think he's a talented player. I'm not sure how much he's going to factor into the offense right away, but I think that he was somebody that Arizona was certainly going to rely on at points this year. And he's somebody that Washington could as well, because with this acquisition, where he's somebody who doesn't have a whole bunch of experience under his belt. He's got, I believe it's 9 catches for 97 yards under his belt in terms of what he did in 2023. He played 11 games, started 2. for the Wildcats. But now looking at what he can be in this offense, he's the perfect fourth option where, you look at him and Rashid Williams is exciting. He was really, really good throughout spring camp. We like what we saw from Keith Reynolds, and he's the perfect guy to fill that trio where, now Rashid can play on the outside more often than not. He can still play on the outside, and Keith Reynolds can just move strictly into the slot. And between those three guys, that's a nice second level of playmakers where, I know he doesn't have a whole ton of experience, but he certainly has a lot more than Rashid and Keith, and that's no knock on either of those guys. He's just a year older than them and has a little bit more under his belt, which is exactly what this offense is looking for. And, I don't think that discounts that, they might still be able to take a guy like Elijah Badger, the wide receiver from Arizona State, who was on an official visit, a week and a half ago or so. But between, these couple of guys, he's somebody he's a veteran guy who can still take a big step forward this season, but isn't necessarily enough to overwhelm those guys or take a whole bunch of targets away from other players in the room.
Yeah, exactly. This is something where it does not necessarily is a 2024 acquisition. It's more so a 25, 26 acquisition who can also help you in 2024, where it sounded like when he signed with Arizona in 2022 that he was going to be more of a slot receiver. And when you look at his skill set and the things he can do, that's where he makes sense. Kind of in that Keith Reynolds mold, where if you play him behind Giles Jackson and Keith and Green are competing for playing time, that second option out of the slot, that's not a bad problem to have, because the next season, 2025, you go in with Keith and Green as your main two slot options, potentially with Audric Harris or some other guys, Jason Robinson, that they want to try out at that position. But they all kind of are that similar 5'11", 5'10", really good route runners, really crisp route runners, and that's what it seems like they're going to need when it would. I know one of your favorite concepts that we talk about every day of practice, because we see it every day of practice, is mesh. But beyond what those guys can do in that, but besides what those guys can do in that concept, I think you're looking at it as this was in a similar mold to what I thought they might go with that Bernardo, where you're just getting a guy who's not going back to 23, right? Where he's going to compete for time, but maybe because you have Giles Jackson doesn't get as much time, but you have him for multiple years in the program that you can bridge with those guys like Jason Robinson and the other receivers that they're bringing in, knowing that you're going to have guys in the 25 class who are all going to come in and compete for time as well. So it makes that room really competitive. And one interesting thing did stand out, because you mentioned he started 2 games. It was at USC in week 6 and against Oklahoma in the Valera Alamo Bowl to end the season. He didn't have a target in either one of those games, but it speaks to the coaches seeing in those key games, hey, you know what, this is a guy for blocking sake or for whatever reason. And the other thing that stood out, he had 8 catches, 8 targets. Every time he was called upon, he delivered. Now, again, it's a very small sample size, but what that tells me, it's like a Giles Jackson, where you might only throw to him 31 times, but if you throw 31 passes, that's all you need. Like, you don't, because you have Denzel, you have Jeremiah, you have Rashid, these guys that are more designed on the outside, that all those guys have to do is just be that second, third, fourth release valve when you don't have a tight end, or even if you do have a tight end. So it allows the offense to just be more dynamic, be a little more spread out, and kind of in that Ryan Grubb role, right? Where you're going to find somebody open, and whether the offensive line gets totally patchworked or not, Will Rogers needs about 2 seconds to find somebody open with these concepts.
Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the viewers tuning in for this special bonus episode. We really do appreciate your support and spending a little bit of time on a Sunday evening with us. And with that being said, make sure, because we're going to be doing more like this, if there are more commits over the next couple of days, whatever it might be, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel to do content every single day, as you can clearly see. So please make sure you click that bell so you never miss when we post a new video. Leave a like on the video down below if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that. Drop them down in the YouTube comments. And if you're audio only, please leave us a 5-star review, as it all really does help the show out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Monday.